All right, ready to dive into World of Warcraft's Badlands.
Oh, absolutely. Always up for a good deep dive, especially into a place like the Badlands.
Now, I know what some listeners might be thinking. Uh, Another wasteland, really.
Yeah.
But trust me, the Badlands are way more than just some dusty old zone. We're talking a place with history that's as wild as the landscape itself. We've got in-game stuff, bits of lore, even pulled out some RPG guides.
Nice.
So get ready, because we're going to uncover why this place, the Badlands, is so much more than meets the eye.
What I think is really cool about the Badlands is how they mix like total destruction with this weird kind of beauty. It's like, one of those puzzle boxes.
I like that.
Every layer you peel back, there's a whole new part of the story.
Okay, I am SO in for this puzzle box thing. So first things first, got to talk about what it's actually like there. Imagine those crazy sandstorms. Can't even see where you're going. And the RPG guide, get this, it actually says, traveling at night is the best way to go.
Yeah, it's rough. But the real surprise is that the Badlands haven't always been like this. I mean, if you can believe it, our sources say this place used to be a total paradise. Green, lush, full of life, the whole deal.
Well, hold on. From paradise to, well, what we see now, that's a huge GE change. What happened?
All right, picture this. A being made of pure fire, so powerful it can literally reshape the land. That's Ragnaros, the elemental lord of fire. And when he showed up, well, let's just say it wasn't good for the local real estate. Scorched earth, literally. And that's how we got the Badlands.
Okay, that's a serious bad day for anything trying to live there. But even after all that, the Badlands became like this central point for all kinds of different groups throughout history, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. Think back to the Second War, the Orcish Horde on the move. The Blacktooth Grin warriors, specifically, they had the job of escorting this powerful ogre mage named Cho'Gall through the Badlands. He was a key player in all those dark rituals the Horde was into.
Didn't they end up clashing with, like, the human warriors from Stromgarde?
Yeah.
Right there in the Badlands.
Yeah. Yep, right in the thick of it. Shows you just how important that spot was even way back then.
For sure. And then the Horde, they even set up their own stronghold, Kargath, to really solidify their control over the area.
Yeah, they did. But as we all know, nothing stays the same in Azeroth. The Cataclysm shook things up, buried old Kargath, forced the orcs to build new Kargath.
So we're already seeing how much history is packed into this one zone. But it wasn't all just about the orcs, was it?
Definitely not. You've also got the Black Dragon flight lurking around. And those guys, they're known for their connection to the old gods, those ancient beings of pure corruption. And they're particularly active in places like Lethlor Ravine and the Dust Bowl.
Uh-oh. So we're talking some serious dark forces at play here.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely something darker going on beneath the surface. And then, of course, you can't forget about those Dust Belcher ogres. They're practically everywhere in the Badlands.
Yeah, good point. Those guys definitely add another level of don't go there alone to the place.
For sure. And then, just to make things even more interesting, you've got the Alliance making moves,
I
too.
mean, really? I always thought of the Badlands as pure Horde territory.
It has been traditionally. But the Alliance, they've established a presence at Dragon's Mouth, which shows how the power dynamics are starting to shift.
Okay, so we've got this crazy landscape, a past full of conflict. But people are still drawn to the Badlands. Why? What's the big attraction?
That's the really intriguing part. It's all about what's hidden there. The treasures, the ancient secrets, the potential for power.
All right, spill the beans. What kind of treasures are we talking about here?
In the northeast, near Loch Modan, you'll find Uldaman. This place is huge, a Titan-forged fortress built by the Titans themselves, the beings that shaped Azeroth. Legend has it, it holds clues to the origins of the dwarves, but it's guarded by the Stone Vault Trogs.
Trogs guarding a Titan fortress. That sounds fun.
Oh, it's a blast. But Uldaman isn't the only hotspot. Right in the heart of the Badlands, there's the Tomb of the Watchers, just recently unearthed, and it's already attracting all the wrong kinds of attention.
Okay, who are we talking about here? Like treasure hunters, archaeologists, or something even weirder?
Think more like a whole bunch of rival groups, all with their own agendas. The Explorers League, they're all about knowledge and artifacts. Then you've got the Dark Iron Dwarves. Those guys are notorious for their ambition and messing with forbidden magic. And then there's the Reliquary. They're all about preserving history and protecting powerful relics.
Wow, sounds like the Tomb of the Watchers is about to become the most popular spot in the Badlands. But let's go back to Uldaman for a sec. I'm really curious about this whole Titan fortress and dwarven origins thing.
Oh, yeah, it's a wild story. Imagine those early Ironforge prospectors, driven by curiosity and the thirst for knowledge. They stumble across these ancient ruins hoping to find clues about where they came from.
Sounds like a dwarven Indiana Jones movie.
Pretty much. But here's the twist. In their search for answers, they accidentally wake up the Stone Vault Trogs, and now those Trogs guard Old Man with a vengeance.
Oh, come on. Classic case of curiosity killed the dwarf, huh? Makes you think, what if those prospectors had succeeded? What kind of secrets would they have uncovered?
That's the big what if, isn't it? Dwarves wielding Titan technology could have totally changed the power balance of Azeroth. That's why controlling Uldaman is such a big deal. So many factions are fighting over it.
Okay, Uldaman is officially on my places to avoid list. But what about goblins? They always seem to pop up in the most unexpected places. Are they hanging out in the Badlands too?
They wouldn't miss out on a place like this. The Steamweedle Cartel, those guys, they're all about neutrality and profit. They got towns like Fuselight and Fuselight by the Sea. It just goes to show that not everyone in the Badlands is caught up in that Horde Alliance conflict.
All right, sometimes it pays to stay out of the big fights, especially in a place as dangerous as the Badlands. And speaking of danger, our RPG guide makes it very clear that this isn't exactly a place you just wander into unprepared.
You got that right. You need more than just a sense of adventure to survive in the Badlands.
So what's the survival guide say? What should we be prepared for?
Well, for starters, remember those sandstorms we talked about? They're not just annoying, they can get you totally lost. The guide stresses having detailed maps, knowing your directions. Or you could end up wandering around for days, and not in a good way.
Yikes, no thank you. And I'm guessing water's a must-have too, right? The Badlands don't exactly look like a tropical paradise.
You got it. Water, protection from the elements, knowing what creatures to avoid. It's all essential for survival. This is not a place for beginners.
Sounds like the Badlands will really put your skills to the test. But even with all that danger, there's something about it that draws people in. Like a magnet for adventurers, treasure seekers, all those who crave power.
It's that mystery, the chance of discovering something incredible, the allure of the unknown. We've only just scratched the surface of what the Badlands have to offer, and in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be going even deeper.
It's easy to get caught up in all the big, epic stuff, right? Like huge battles, ancient ruins, powerful artifacts.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of curious about what everyday life is like in the Badlands. What about the creatures, the people just trying to make it through the day in this crazy environment?
Oh, for sure. It's easy to forget about those smaller stories, the struggles of those who actually call the Badlands home. The RPG source, it actually gives a pretty good look at those everyday challenges. Take those Dreisnout gnolls, for example.
Right, the gnolls.
More of them than just about anyone else in the Badlands, but they're constantly running from something. Ogres, dragons, even those dark iron dwarves hunt them down.
So they're like the bottom of the food chain.
Pretty much. It's a constant fight for survival, not just against other creatures, but the environment itself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, think about it. The scorching sun, never-ending wind, barely any water. The Badlands test you in every way possible. The source even recommends getting some desert survival skills down before you even think about going there.
Definitely not your relaxing getaway spot.
Nope, not at all. But even in this crazy environment, some manage to not just survive, but do pretty well for themselves, like those Ironforge prospectors we talked about earlier.
Right.
They go out there, face the danger, all because they're looking for knowledge, maybe a chance to find some of those lost Titan relics.
Almost like dwarven Indiana Joneses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their dedication, it really shows you the kind of spirit you need to have to be drawn to the Badlands. The adventurers, the explorers, those who aren't afraid of a little or a lot of danger.
It's almost like they like the danger, pushing themselves to the limit.
Yeah.
But it's not all about personal ambition, though, right? I mean, those prospectors, they hire mercenaries to protect them. They form these little expeditions.
Oh, yeah, that's super important. It shows how you need to work together in a place like this, rely on others. You can't survive the Badlands solo. Got to trust the people watching your back.
It's almost like a reminder that even in the worst places, community, helping each other out, that's what helps you survive.
Absolutely.
And speaking of community, we can't forget about that Horde outpost, Kargath, right? A symbol of how strong they are, how determined to make a life for themselves, even in this tough environment.
Kargath's a great example of how the Horde adapts and never gives up. Remember, the original one was destroyed by the Cataclysm.
Yeah.
But they rebuilt, came back stronger. Though the sources do mention there's still a lot of suspicion there, even within Kargath. Trust is hard to come by in the Badlands, even among your own allies.
I bet. When danger's everywhere, got to be careful who you trust.
For sure.
But it can't be all bad, right?
Yeah.
Even the Badlands got to have some good parts, some hidden beauty that keeps people coming back.
Oh, absolutely. The harshness is definitely there, no doubt about it. But there's this rugged beauty, too. Think about those massive canyons carved out over centuries by the wind and erosion, or those wide open skies totally untouched by anything.
Like stepping back in time to a much wilder Azeroth.
Yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
raw, untamed beauty, it can be pretty amazing.
For sure.
That's part of what makes the Badlands so interesting, even with all the danger.
Speaking of danger, let's talk about actually getting around in the Badlands. The sources are pretty clear. It's not a place you want to just wander around in. Got to be prepared, know what you're doing.
Yeah, no kidding. Those sandstorms, they're not messing around. They can disorient you so fast you'll be lost in a heartbeat. Especially with how everything's constantly shifting, no clear paths or anything.
Can you imagine stumbling across some hidden trog cave when you're always lost and thirsty?
Oh, I'd rather not.
Nightmare fuel right there. And I remember the guide said something about traveling at night, sleeping during the day.
Yep, that's key to surviving this place. The heat during the day, it can be deadly. You got to adjust to the way things work in the Badlands, or it'll wear you down fast.
So it's like the Badlands are always testing you, forcing you to adapt and overcome all these obstacles in your way. And if you manage to do that, well, you get a special kind of reward, right?
Yeah, definitely. The reward of knowing you conquered one of Azeroth's toughest landscapes, the thrill of discovering something new, the satisfaction of pushing yourself beyond your limits, and hey, maybe even the chance to find some ancient secret that's been hidden for who knows how long.
It's that feeling of possibility, of adventure that keeps you going, right?
Right.
Even when the sand's blasting in your face and you're running out of water.
For sure. That's the spirit.
But there's one more thing about the Badlands we haven't really touched on yet. And it might be the most interesting part of all.
You talking about the magic? That unseen energy that kind of flows through the whole region, shapes the land, affects anyone who dares to go there.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. We've hinted at it, right? The presence of the old gods, the ley lines, that feeling of something ancient and powerful, hiding just below the surface.
And in the final part of our deep dive, that's what we're going to explore. The magical heart of the Badlands.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, huh? Brutal landscape, those groups always fighting, people just trying to survive each day in the Badlands. But then there's this whole other thing, right? This kind of mystical energy that makes it even weirder.
And it's not just like one type of magic either. It's more like all these different forces coming together. You've got that raw elemental power left over from when Ragnaros showed up, the Titan energy from Uldaman, and then, well, there's something else too.
Oh, okay, got to hear more about that. Something else, how? It's the old gods, isn't it? Azeroth's biggest baddies.
It's hard to say for sure, but yeah, there are definitely signs pointing that way. Remember how we talked about the Black Dragonflight hanging out in the Badlands?
Yeah, those guys.
They've got a long history with the old gods, a history of getting corrupted by them.
So them being in the Badlands is probably not a coincidence. Maybe they're drawn to some ancient evil power hidden there.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Badlands so interesting. It's like this little version of the bigger fight going on, you know? Light and shadow, order and chaos, all trying to take control.
Well, kind of intense to think that could be happening right there in a dust bowl.
Yeah.
But how does all this magic actually show itself? Like, what would you see if you were exploring the Badlands?
There are stories, you know, people talk about weird energy changes, things looking different than they should, even whispers that sound like voices carried on the wind. Some even think the ley lines, those energy currents that flow through Azeroth, well, they're super strong in the Badlands.
Ley lines, huh? Those always mean crazy magic is about to happen. It's like the whole region's buzzing with power, just waiting for someone to tap into it.
Exactly. And that's a big part of what draws certain types to the Badlands. Mages looking for forbidden knowledge, warlocks trying to use that raw chaos energy for themselves. It attracts anyone who's into that edge-of-your-seat kind of magic.
So it's not just sandstorms and trogs you got to worry about. You could bump into some power-hungry mage messing with stuff way over their head.
Yeah, that's part of the risk, right. But there's also this other side to the magic in the Badlands. It's almost, I don't know, spiritual.
Really? I got to hear about this.
Some believe the Badlands have this special connection to the elemental spirits of Azeroth. Like, the air itself is filled with their essence.
I can actually see that. Everything's so exposed, so open to the elements there, the scorching sun, the wind that never stops, the ground that's just unforgiving. It's like You can feel the heartbeat of the planet.
Exactly. It's both inspiring and a little scary at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
It reminds you of the power of nature, how it can be destructive and life-giving all at once.
So the Badlands are more than just a wasteland. They're a place where things change, where things are reborn, even when it seems impossible.
Yeah, and maybe that's the biggest takeaway from the Badlands. Even in the most desolate places, life finds a way. And beauty. You can find it anywhere, as long as you're looking for it.
It's amazing, right? We started this whole deep dive thinking about a dusty, dangerous wasteland. And look where we ended up. Ancient history, these cosmic forces, the core of magic in Azeroth.
It just goes to show a place that looks empty can actually be full of stories, secrets, and this wild, untamed beauty all its own.
So to everyone listening, the next time you're in the Badlands, remember, don't just look at the surface. Listen to those whispers on the wind. You might just discover something truly amazing.
And with that, happy exploring, everyone!